All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Nicole, and welcome back to our English class. Now, continuing with our series on conversational English, for today, we are going to talk about expressing opinions clearly. Now, I hope you are all feeling ready for our next topic. As you can see on the screen today, our focus is on expressing opinions clearly. From the Conversational English series, we've already talked about pronunciation of casual phrases, small talk pronunciation, and pronunciation for socializing vocabulary. And again, for today, expressing opinions clearly will be the focus. Now, we've already worked on those things that I've mentioned. So, here, for a moment, let me see if my screen is. All right, my screen is okay. All right. Going back, yes, expressing opinions clearly. Now, here, I've included this topic under our series for conversational English because this is also an important facet or important area for strengthening or improving your conversational English skills. Because being able to express your opinions clearly is as essential as other things, other topics under conversational English because it allows you to participate more fully in conversations. It allows you to share your perspective, to engage in discussions. So whether you are talking about your favorite movie, for instance, your thoughts about a current event, or even just deciding where to eat, knowing how to express your opinion effectively is always the key. So yes. We will be looking at some useful phrases and focusing on how to pronounce them clearly so that your listeners you the one you're talking to, especially those who are native speakers or who speak only in English, they can easily understand what you're trying to say. So we will also touch upon how to express your opinions with different levels of certainty and politeness. Just like before, please feel free to type any questions you have in the chat as we go along. The chat bot is always open, and I check the chats from time to time. So, yes, your participation is what makes these lessons helpful for everyone. All right, are you ready? Because let's get started immediately. Now, under expressing opinions clearly, we have four areas to tackle. First, stating an opinion. This is the most basic way to share what you think. So we will look at some common phrases you can use to introduce your opinions clearly or directly. Agreeing with someone. So it's important to know how to show that you have the same idea or viewpoint as someone else. So we'll learn some phrases for expressing agreement. As well as disagreeing politely. So sometimes you might have different opinion from someone else, and it is crucial to know how to express your disagreement in a way that is respectful and does not really cause offense to the other person, to the one you're talking to the listener. So we will practice some polite ways to disagree. And lastly is softening or hedging opinions. So there are times when you might not be completely sure about your opinion. So you want to express it less strongly. So we will look at ways to soften your statements or hedge your opinions. All right, those four are the areas that will be tackled for today, for this session. Let's start with stating an opinion. What are the phrases under this? All right, I think you're very familiar with all the, if not all, most of the phrases that we will be tackling today. I think you will be kind of familiar with it, but we'll look at it again in a more comprehensive viewpoint. All right, first we have here I think, and then your sentence, your opinion, your thoughts. So this is a phrase, I think. One more time. Listen carefully to how I pronounce the phrase. I, very easy. I think. Think. Now, very clear that the TH sound here, the version of TH sound is voiceless because it is soft. It is not using your throat. So when you try to read, think, or read or pronounce think, and then you try to touch your neck because that's how you again that's how you manage that's how you find out if a particular sound is voiced or voiceless. If it's voiced, it vibrates. If it's voiceless, it does not vibrate. Your throat does not vibrate. So yeah, think. Think. You can also do it on your own, huh? Think. It does not vibrate at all, which means that this is voiceless. So we will use the version of voiceless th. Well, it's also obvious in the IP transcription. This one, the one that I highlighted, that one, was it highlighted well for a moment? But yeah, this one, that one, that is, how do you call that? Yeah, that is the one highlighted in yellow. That is the IPA representation of voiceless th. So there's also another version with voice th. You will be you will be introduced to that later. We will be encountering that later. But yeah, that is the just remember that is the IPA transcription or representation or symbol for voiceless th sound. Think. All right. I think this is probably the most common and versatile way to introduce a personal thought or belief, because when you say I think, it means you're signaling that what follows is your own perspective, and it might not be a definite fact. So it is more of expressing a personal opinion. Again, personal opinion. Now, the pronunciation tip here is stress on think, and then clear th sound, clear voiceless th sound. So we simply say this since we stress on think, the word think, we say it as I think, and then your sentence, your opinion after that will continue, will be added. So it's a gentle way to share what's on your mind. I think, say for example, let's try to use it in a sentence. I think that learning a new language opens up many opportunities. Again, I think that learning a new language opens up a new opportunity, something like that. So we stress on think, especially if we already have the sentence. We try to stress on the word think. All right, that's the first phrase. Second, I believe. I believe. So this phrase, it suggests a stronger conviction than I think, because when you say I believe, it indicates a more firm opinion or a deeply held view. So you state a belief, you state a view of yourself from yourself. So the pronunciation here, look at the tip, the column, the row on the tip, the column on the tip. Here in I believe, it says emphasize the second syllable. So I believe, leave. You emphasize on the second syllable of the word believe. Huh? Let's not really that focus on the on I. It's usually not that. It's usually not the center of syllable stress. It's usually the other one. So when we say emphasize second syllable, we most likely mean the second syllable of believe, because I does not have a second syllable. That's the first thing, and I is usually not the focus in these phrases. That's the second thing. So believe, second syllable is leave. So emphasize on that particular syllable, and we get I believe. I believe. One more time. I believe. Again, I believe. So when we stress the second syllable, as you have noticed, it has a longer E sound, like leave, right? So take note of that. And then let's try to repeat saying the phrase with me. I believe. One more time. I believe. Should I jot it on the for a while? Let me try to. I think. All right. I put it on our chatbot so that you can also kind of like follow where we are right now. So I put I think and then I believe for a while. Yes. So just to really for you to really be able to follow where I am right now. So, yes, going back to I believe, second syllable is stressed. So, this conveys a sense of certainty. It is stating a belief or views. It's much stronger than the first one. Say, for example, in a sentence, I will say, I believe that hard work always pays off in the end. I believe that hard work always pays off in the end. Something like that. So stress and believe, especially or specifically, we stressed on the second syllable of believe, which is leave. I believe. All right. Then there's I feel that. I feel that. So here, the meaning is showing emotion or viewpoint. I feel that. Feel. While feel can refer to emotions, in this context, I feel that is often used to express a viewpoint or an intuition, something that feels true to you. So, the pronunciation tip is to link feel and that smoothly, almost as one sound. All right. I feel that. I feel that. So it looks like this. You link feel and that smoothly, and then you get that. It looks like a one word. Feel that. I feel that. For example, we have a sentence. In a sentence, we can use this one. We can say, um, I feel that. I feel that we should spend more time on practical exercises, something like that. I feel that we should spend more time on practical exercises for today's class, something like that. I feel that. You link feel that smoothly. Moving on to in my opinion. Again, in my opinion. So this is a more formal way to state your viewpoint. Yeah, you share a viewpoint, so it clearly marks what follows as your personal perspective. The pronunciation here, the tip is that you stress on opinion, just like any other phrases. Opinion. You stress on that word and then you slightly reduce the in at the beginning and then make it sound like inma, like muh instead of in my, enma. That's how we try to link sound because again, this is a series on conversational English, and when we say conversational English, we don't necessarily follow exactly how the words, the phrases are separately pronounced because there's really fast or like connected speech linking words that are often happening in conversational English since it's informal, since it's natural, since it's common. So that is why we try to adapt the pronunciation as how it is usually um as how it is usually spoken in a natural or common setting. So here in my opinion, not totally but like in my opinion, stress on in the word opinion, stress on the second syllable or the middle sound here. Pin. In my opinion. In my opinion. All right. In my opinion. In my opinion. Okay. So, in a sentence, you could say, In my opinion, taking English classes would help me improve my English skills. In my opinion, taking English classes would help me improve my English skills. All right. Finally, we have from my point of view. From my point of view. So this phrase, it emphasizes that your opinion is based on your individual perspectives and experiences. So you give perspective. And then the pronunciation here is that there should be smooth linking. We try to elaborate what this is. So we link the word smoothly, especially the words point of. Yeah, point of, which can sound like point, point of, point of. You link sound because it's usually fast. Because in conversational English, in natural speech, you kind of like adapt how these sounds will how these words will sound in natural setting. So point of is an example of that. So we can say this is from my point of view. From my point of view. You do not usually say it as from my point of view. Like separately, you do not separately say each word in this phrase. So from my point of view. Alright, I forgot to type it in the chatbot, but yes, here are the words or the phrases that we've talked about. For this slide, for the first set of phrases, under stating an opinion, we have I think, I believe, I feel that, in my opinion, from my point of view. From my point of view. Alright. That is for the first set. And we have, now let's have a practice. It's time to practice. Let's have a practice drill. Very easy practice. I'm sorry for that. Very easy practice drill. What I want you to do is that, just to say the phrases and how it is used in a sentence. You say the phrases and you say the sentence too. Basically, you just repeat with me. All right, let's start. I think we should try a different approach. I think we should try a different approach. I believe honesty is the best policy. I believe honesty is the best policy. This expresses a strong personal conviction. I believe. I feel that. I feel that. So I feel that we need more time to decide. I feel that we need more time to decide. So this is based on feeling or intuition. Intuition. Now, I've mentioned earlier, right, that there is another version of TH sound and that is voiced. So the IP representation or symbol for that is this one. The one I highlighted. That is its IPA representation or symbol. So this one is for the voiceless TH sound. That one. Well, this one, and I feel that is for voiced TH sound. All right. Next, in my opinion, the movie was too long. So this is a more formal way of sharing a personal view. From my point of view, it's not worth the risk. So it shows an opinion still based on personal perspective. Okay. Moving on to second set of phrases understating an opinion. We have the first one, if you ask me. If you ask me. Again, if you ask me. So this is a very direct and informal way to share what you think. It often implies that you have like a strong feeling about something and you're giving your personal take on it. So informal opinion basically. Now the pronunciation tip here is that you should use natural rhythm as just like any other phrases for this session. You use natural rhythm. Now, so basically the pronunciation here should flow naturally like everyday speech because this is conversational English, obviously. Now, the emphasis here is on the word ask. So, if you ask me, again, if you ask me. So it is something you might say when someone directly seeks your viewpoint or when you feel compelled to share. Say, for example, in a sentence, if you ask me, take note, ask is the emphasis here. Again, if you ask me, the new restaurant is definitely overpriced. Something like that. So it's casual and to the point. If you ask me. One more time. If you ask me. Next, we have personally, I think. Personally, I think. So this phrase, it emphasizes personal opinion, right? So this phrase, it emphasizes that your opinion or the opinion you are about to share is specifically yours. Personally, I think. So by using personally, you are highlighting your individual perspective. So you make sure here, when it comes to pronunciation, you make sure to pronounce per. That's the first syllable of the first word, because that's the emphasis here. Per. Personally. Again, personally. Personally. So you clearly pronounce per. Personally. Personally, because that's the emphasis. Now this is followed by I think. Very easy. We've discussed, or like we've discussed it. This is the first phrase that we've talked about earlier, right? So we already know how to pronounce this one. And again, be reminded the stress is on think. So if we try to say the whole phrase, we can say it as personally, I think. That's it. So the emphasis here is on per, first syllable of personally, and the word think. So for instance, in a sentence, I will say, personally, I think that learning English is really good. Again, personally, I think that learning English is really good. So it clearly marks the opinion as your own. Personally. All right. Personally, I think. Next, we have as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, so this phrase indicates your own stance or viewpoint on a matter. So it often suggests that you've considered it and you have come to a firm conclusion. So as far as I'm concerned, meaning basically is one's own stance. Now, pronunciation-wise, you emphasize in concerned. Concerned. And in concerned, you emphasize the second syllable, cerned. So, as far as I'm concerned, so you do that to convey that you have like a definite opinion. Say, for example, as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing in friendship is trust. Okay. So it shows a strong personal conviction. Next, moving on to the way I see it. Again, the way I see it. So this is another informal way to introduce your opinion. So it is suggesting that it's based on your understanding or interpretation of a situation. So casual opinion. Pronunciation-wise, you stress on the word see to highlight your perspective. So you might say, the way I see it. The way I see it. In a sentence, for example, we say, the way I see it. We need to start planning for the future now. Something like that. The way I see it, we should start planning for the future now. So it's a casual way of presenting your viewpoint. Finally, we have to be honest. Very common phrase. To be honest. Sorry for that. To be honest. So you would use this phrase when you want to express your opinion sincerely. So this is a sincere expression, especially if it might be different from what others think or if it's a bit critical. So to be honest. Remember, pronunciation-wise, you reduce the word to, like to. So you do not strictly say to, but to be honest. To be honest. Again, to be honest. So you stress also on the first syllable of honest. So to be honest. To be honest. Just to convey your sincerity. For example, in a sentence, to be honest, I found the presentation quite boring. Well, yeah, that's an example. To be honest, I found the presentation quite boring. So it signals that you're sharing your genuine feeling. No plastic, no. Yeah, just being plain honest. So, to be honest. Now, in summary, these phrases, it offer more varied ways to state your opinion. For if you ask me, it is direct and informal. Personally, I think it emphasizes your individual view. As far as I'm concerned, it shows a firm personal stance. And then the way I see it, it presents a casual interpretation. And lastly, to be honest, it introduces a sincere, sometimes critical opinion. So you should pay attention to the stress and rhythm to use them effectively. Those stress and rhythm that we have discussed. Now let's have immediately the time to practice. Let's have a practice drill. Same process, same pattern. We'll read the phrases and then the sentence. You'll read it or you speak it or you pronounce it with me. Starting with, if you ask me. If you ask me, we should cancel the meeting. So this shows a direct and informal opinion. If you ask me, we should cancel the meeting. Next, personally, I think the food was great. Personally, I think the food was great. So it emphasizes it is more of a personal viewpoint. Next, as far as I'm concerned, he did nothing wrong. As far as I'm concerned, he did nothing wrong. So a firm personal stance is what this is trying to convey. The way I see it, we don't have many options. The way I see it, we don't have many options. So this is a way to present a casual interpretation of a situation. Lastly, to be honest, one more time, to be honest. So, to be honest, I didn't enjoy the concert. So, it is very sincere, perhaps slightly critical opinion. To be honest. Alright. So, for this set, we've talked about if you ask me. Personally, I think, as far as I'm concerned, the way I see it, to be honest. Let's have the next one. Everybody following so far? Are we all good? Are we okay? Can we continue? All right. So let's continue. Let's have the second area for expressing opinions clearly, and that is agreeing with someone. Earlier, we've talked about stating an opinion. Now we've touched on the area of agreeing with someone. Now there's first sets here. It starts with we have I totally agree. I totally agree. So when you say this, you are expressing very strong strong agreement, because there is the word totally, which emphasizes the completeness of your agreement. Now, the pronunciation tip here is that you emphasize on the word agree, to give it a bit more, stress or emphasis. And there's also a longer E sound here at the end. So notice when I read this, I totally agree. I totally agree. All right. That's how you say this phrase. I totally agree. So for example, if someone says in a sentence, well, you can just say this phrase as it is. I totally agree. That's already a whole thought on it. But you can also use it, you can also add a sentence after it, like it could be said later. That's my example for the practice drill. But yeah, this is already a complete thought on its own. So you don't really have to, you don't necessarily try to, you don't really necessarily to put another sentence or connect another sentence to it, because it's a complete thought as it is. So here it leaves no doubt about your alignment. I totally agree. Next we have that's so true. That's so true. This is a more casual way to show agreement. So, casual agreement. It is often used to when someone says something that you find very accurate or that it resonates with your own experience. Now, pronunciation wise, you stress on true. That's so true. Again, that's so true. Very easy. That's so true. This is also um another phrase that can stand on its own. You can just say it alone, or you can say it. You can connect it. You can have another sentence after it. That's so true is already a complete thought on its own because it indicates that you find their statement to be very accurate, but you say it in a casual way. Then next, there's I agree with you. I agree with you. So this is a confirming agreement. This is a straightforward and clear way to confirm that you share the same opinion as the person you are talking to. I agree with you. You confirm their agreement. Now the pronunciation tip here is that you link the words with you smoothly. So more like a one word with you, with you. So for example, um uh for example, if someone states their opinion on a particular issue and you try to share that and you share that opinion too, you can simply just say, I agree with you. I'm sorry. I agree with you. That's already a direct confirmation of your agreement. That's a whole sentence already. So you don't really need necessarily add another phrase, another sentence, another clause to complete it. That's already a complete thought on its own. I agree with you. Next, moving on to absolutely. Absolutely. So this is a very strong way to express agreement. This is a strong, very emphatic yes. Emphatic yes. So strong yes, absolutely. The pronunciation wise, the tip here is that you stress on the third syllable. The third syllable is lut. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you stress on that. You say it like that. So you do that because it conveys a sense of complete and enthusiastic agreement. So that's already. I'm sorry. This is also another sentence, another phrase, another word that has, that is completed on its own. Absolutely. All right. Finally, we have you're right. You're right. This phrase not only shows agreement but also often implies that you acknowledge the correctness of what the other person has said. You confirm their correctness. You are right. You're right. So make sure you pronounce the letter R sound here. You're right. You pronounce it clearly as much as possible. All right. So basically, this just, you try to confirm that you believe their statement is accurate. You believe the other person's statement is accurate. You're right. Okay. So this sentence we have, I totally agree. That's so true. I agree with you. Absolutely. You're right. Now, it's time to practice again. Let's have a practice drill. Same pattern, same process. Say the phrases and the sentences with me. Starting with, I totally agree. So, I've already mentioned right earlier that these phrases can already stand on its own, but what I have included in this practice drill is another way to another way to say another maybe just additional info how you can say this word not just not these phrases not just on its own. You can also try to connect other clause so that you can make another complete thought. So these five phrases on its own, that's already accepted. That's already an accepted answer. You can absolutely say these words on its own as a reply or as a response. But yes, I have another sentence here, so let's follow that. Starting with, I totally agree. I totally agree with what you said. That's so true. That's so true about the weather here. I agree with you. I agree with you on that point. Absolutely. Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Very strong, yes. You're right. You're right about that issue. It confirms the correctness of some statement regarding a particular topic. So that is all for this set. Let's immediately hop on the second set of agreeing with someone. Starting with, I get what you're saying. Again, I get what you're saying. So this phrase, it goes beyond simple agreement. So it first shows that you understand the other person's point of view. So it is understanding someone, because by saying I get, that phrase I get what you are saying, you with emphasis on get, I get what you're saying, and also on the saying, you emphasize that one. You're indicating comprehension. You're indicating that you're understanding that particular person with you. So you might use this when someone has explained a complex idea or a personal feeling, and you want to kind of like assure them that you understand their perspective before you state your agreement or add your own thoughts. It's a way to build understanding in a conversation. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Next, we have I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So this is an emphatic way to express the strongest possible agreement. Strongest agreement, basically. So the stress here should be on agree more to highlight the intensity of your agreement. So this phrase, it literally means that it is impossible for you to agree any more than you already do. That is why this is very strong. So this is I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. It conveys a strong, very strong alignment of opinions. I couldn't agree more. Next, we have that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. So this phrase, it shows a very personal and complete agreement. You emphasize on exactly and also on feel. You emphasize that one too. So you're indicating that you share the same sentiment, same emotion about something. So it suggests a more like a deep connection to like the other person's opinion. So that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. Exactly and feel are emphasized. That's exactly how I feel. It builds empathy and it shows a shared emotional response. That's exactly how I feel. Next, moving on to that makes sense. That makes sense. So this type of agreement, it is based on logic and understanding. So agreement with logic. When you say that makes sense, you're indicating that you understand the reasoning. You understand the reasoning behind what the other person has said and that it seems logical to you. That makes sense. So the pronunciation here is that you should have crisp S sounds, hissing sounds, and makes sense. So, just to sound clear. You might use this when someone have like someone someone has explained a plan or a solution, for example, and you understand why it's a good idea, why it's a good plan, why it's a good solution. So you say that makes sense. That makes sense. It's an agreement based on understanding the rational. It makes sense. Finally, we have I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. It is an informal agreement, so this is a casual and informal way of expressing agreement on a specific point. You link with you, naturally. So you're showing solidarity and support for that particular idea. It is a friendly way of saying, I agree with you on this specific thing, something like that. So it indicates your support, basically, for that specific idea. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. With you should be linked naturally. It sounds like a one word. I'm with you on that. All right. In summary, these phrases, it offers a range of ways to agree. I get what you're saying. It shows understanding before agreement. I couldn't agree more. It expresses the strongest agreement. That's exactly how I feel. It indicates a deep personal agreement. That makes sense. It shows agreement based on logic. And I'm with you on that is a casual way to agree on like a specific point. So let's have immediately a time to practice for these set of words. Let's have a practice drill. Same pattern, same process. Let's read the phrase and its corresponding sentence. You say it with me. All right. I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying about the deadline. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with your suggestion. So, strongest possible agreement with the position, with a suggestion. That's exactly how I feel. So, that's exactly how I feel about the topic. So, you indicate a complete personal agreement with a statement or a sentiment. That's exactly how I feel. That makes sense. That makes sense to me now. You understand the logic, something like that. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that decision. So this is a casual way of showing agreement on a specific decision. All right. Before we move on, let me try to see my screen for a moment, just to see if it's a. All right. I think it's okay. All right. Let's continue. Now, let me read these phrases once again. I get what you're saying. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly how I feel. That makes sense. I'm with you on that. Okay, let's move on to another set of phrases and another area for expressing opinions clearly, and that is disagreeing politely. Again, disagreeing politely. So let's have the first phrase. I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure I agree. So this expresses a polite disagreement. Now the tip here is that you use a gentle tone and then you stress on the word agree. So basically, you say it again as I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I agree. Also emphasize on sure, the word sure. I'm not sure I agree. So say it with me. I'm not sure I agree. Your turn. I'm not sure I agree. Good. Very good. So this phrase, it is a mild way to indicate you don't really share the same opinion with the other person. You might use this when you want to be cautious and not too direct, not to be offensive. Okay. Next, I see your point, but. I see your point, but. So this shows a respectful contrast. The tip here is to soften but. So you say, I see your point. You emphasize on point. I see your point, but. All right. Say it with me. I see your point, but. Your turn. I see your point, but. Very good. Good. All right. So this phrase, it basically just, acknowledges the other person's perspective before introducing your different view, which is very respectful, right? The but here, it should be gentle. It should not be abrupt. To be still, respectful to the other person. Next, I understand, but. So this indicates acknowledgement plus contrast. The tip here is you emphasize on stand in the word understand, and then you soften but. So basically, you say, I understand, but. Again, I understand, but. Your turn. I understand, but. Good, very good. So it's similar to the previous phrase, right? But this shows you have heard them before presenting your contrasting opinion with a softened but. So I understand, but. All right. Next, that's one way to see it, but. That's one way to see it, but. So this is offering another view. The tip here is that you kind of like clear see it, and then another gentle tone for but. So you say that's one way to see it, but. That's one way to see it, but. Your turn. That's one way to see it, but. Good. Very good. All right. So basically, this phrase, it just suggests that there are multiple perspectives, and you're about to kind of like share another one. So you kind of like introduce the contrast. You offer another view. Well, finally, let's have I'm afraid I disagree. Okay, that's strong. I'm afraid I disagree. It's a formal disagreement. Now, the emphasis here is on the word disagree. And also the second syllable on afraid, you emphasize afraid. So basically, you say it like this: I'm afraid I disagree. In disagree, you emphasize the last syllable too. But you emphasize on agree. So you say it like so you say this phrase as like this: I'm afraid I disagree. I'm afraid I disagree. Your turn. I'm afraid I disagree. Good. All right. So the phrase here, I'm afraid, it softens, the directness of I disagree, which is still, it makes it more polite in formal settings. All right. Those are the phrases. I'm not sure I agree. I see your point, but I understand, but that's one way to see it, but I'm afraid I disagree. All right. It's time to practice. Let's have a practice drill. Same pattern, same process. You say the phrases and the sentences, corresponding sentences with me. All right, let's start. I'm not sure I agree. I'm not sure I agree with your conclusion. I see your point. I see your point, but I have another idea. I understand, but I think we need more data. So it's kind of like shows comprehension before introducing a contrasting thought. That's one way to see it, but I disagree. So it acknowledges one perspective while still expressing a different opinion. Lastly, I'm afraid I disagree. I'm afraid I disagree with your assessment. So this is a more formal way of us stating your differing opinion on an assessment, for example. So those are the phrases, first set of phrases for disagreeing politely. Let's have the second set already. Starting with, I don't quite agree with that. That's long. That's already a whole sentence. I don't quite agree with that. So the use of quite, it softens, the disagreement. So here, the meaning is soft refusal. So you make it less direct than simply saying, I don't agree with that. So you stress on quite agree here. You emphasize that there's a partial lack of agreement rather than a complete opposition. So that's why the tip here is you stress on quite agree. You might use this when you have some reservations of like or like a slightly different viewpoint, but you don't want to be confrontational. So I don't quite agree with that. All right. Next, I see things a bit differently. I see things a bit differently. So this is a straightforward and polite way of stating that your perspective on the matter is not the same. So there you have a different view basically. So here, pronunciation wise, you emphasize on differently because it clearly signals that there's a divergence in your views. So this phrase, it is often used when you want to introduce your opinion without directly contradicting the other person. So I see things a bit differently. I see things a bit differently. Next, that's not how I see it. That's not how I see it. So this phrase, it presents a firmer contrast in opinion. You directly state that your understanding or that your perspective is different from theirs. So here, pronunciation-wise, you stress on see it. The phrase see it. You highlight the difference in viewpoint by doing this. That's now how I see it. That's not how I see it. Well, it's more direct, right? It is still generally polite as it focuses on your own perception. So you might use this when you have a clear and contrasting, understanding of a situation. That's not how I see it. Moving on to you might be right, but you might be right, but. So this is a great way to show partial agreement, and then you acknowledge the validity of the other person's point before introducing your differing view. So pronunciation wise is that you reduce the bat softly to make it more respectful to the other person. You create a smoother transition to your contrasting opinion here. So it shows that you have considered the other person's perspective. You might be right, but all right. You might be right, but then you continue it with your sentence. For example, you might be right, but I'm also concerned about this one, that one. Something like that. You might be right, but okay. Finally, we have I respect your opinion, but. So this is a very polite and kind of like a formal, formal way to disagree. You emphasize here on the respect. So it's a polite disagreement. And pronunciation wise, respect is emphasized. So I respect your opinion. With by doing that, you explicitly show that you value their thoughts, and then you respect your thoughts even though you hold a different view. So you soften the bat here, choose to effectively connect the continuing sentence or clause after this phrase. So that is another key here. So this phrase is particularly useful in situations where you want to kind of like disagree without causing offense. Basically, disagreeing politely. So I respect your opinion, but in a sentence, for example, if you want to have a complete thought, you can say, I respect your opinion, but I have a slightly different perspective based on my experience, something like that. So for this set of phrases, we have, I don't quite agree with that. I see things a bit differently. That's not how I see it. You might be right, but I respect your opinion, but. All right. Just like before, it's time to practice. Let's have a practice drill. Same process, same pattern. We say the phrases or the phrases first, and then followed by its corresponding sentence sample. All right. I don't quite agree with that. I don't quite agree with that statement. Very easy. You show a soft disagreement with a statement. I see things a bit differently. I see things a bit differently than you do. It indicates a different perspective. That's not how I see it. That's not how I see it at all. This expresses a more firm contrast in opinion. You might be right, but. You might be right, but. So there's another. You might be right, but there's another side. It shows partial agreement. Lastly, I respect your opinion, but I disagree. So this is a polite way of stating differing view while also kind of like acknowledging the other person's viewpoint. All right. Okay. That is first set of that is the second set of disagreeing politely. So far, we've already covered 3 areas under expressing opinions clearly. First, we had stating an opinion. Next to that is agreeing politely, something like that, I think. Let me go. But yeah, that's the second is more of like agreeing with someone. And then the third one is disagreeing politely. So with that, we will have the last area, the fourth area that we will be exploring under expressing opinions clearly, and that is on softening or hedging opinions. So we do this because sometimes you might not be completely sure about your opinion, right? Or you want to express it less forcefully. So the phrases under softening or hedging opinions, it can help you do that. Now, again, just like before, pay attention to the tone and emphasis suggested in the tips, and take a look at the table on your screen. That is the first set of softening or hedging opinions. First set of phrases for softening or hedging opinions. First, we have here, it seems to me that. It seems to me that. Now, this phrase, it introduces a mid-opinion. Not mid-opinion, but mild opinion. I'm sorry for that. I wasn't able to read it correctly. I wasn't able to see it clearly. But yeah, it's mild opinion. Excuse me for that. Going back, it is the first phrase is a mild opinion. It's the meaning. It suggests that your view is based on an impression rather than a definite fact. That is why it's mild opinion. Pronunciation wise, we have a light tone and then you stress on seems. So you use a light tone and then you stress on the word seems. You convey, by doing that, you can convey a sense of tentativeness. Um, yeah, tentativeness. You're not kind of like, you don't have, you don't share a strong opinion. It seems to me that, something like that. Say, for example, in a sentence, it seems to me that the weather is getting hotter or getting warmer, something like that. It seems to me that. So, you are sharing an observation, but you are not stating it as an absolute truth. It leaves room for other interpretations. It seems to me that. Next, we have I could be wrong, but. I could be wrong, but it is a humble opinion. This is a great way to express that humble opinion meaning. So it shows that you're open to the possibility of being incorrect. I could be wrong, but. So here you pronunciation wise, you make sure to pronounce the letter R in the wrong clearly. So wrong. You start with this phrase. It's when you start with this phrase, you soften the statement that follows and make it less assertive, which can be polite really. So that is, I could be wrong, but it shows you are not entirely sure and are open to correction. It's a humble opinion. I could be wrong, but. Next, maybe it's just me, but. Again, maybe it's just me, but. So this phrase, it is suggesting subjectivity. It explicitly suggests that your opinion might be subjective and not shared by others. So pronunciation-wise, you emphasize on the words just me. So just me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me, but. So by doing that, it will highlight the personal nature of your view. Now, this phrase, you might use this when you have a feeling or a thought that seems different from the general consensus. Maybe it's just me, but I found that movie a little boring. Something like that. Maybe it's just me. So you acknowledge that others might have a different experience. Maybe it's just me, but. Alright. Moving on to I tend to think. I tend to think. This introduces a habitual opinion or a way you generally lean in your thinking. I tend to think. So pronunciation wise, there's a crisp T sound in tend here. So it should be pronounced clearly because when you do that, it suggests a pattern in your thoughts rather than a strong conviction in this specific instance. For example, I tend to think that, a balanced approach is usually the best. Something like that. I tend to think. All right. That's the fourth one, I think. So it indicates more of like a general principle here that guides your thinking. I tend to think. It's a habitual opinion. Lastly, we have, to me, it feels like. To me, it feels like. So this phrase, it expresses an emotional expression or an opinion that is based on your feelings or intuition. So you use a smooth tone here, pronunciation-wise, because it helps convey this sense of feeling. You might use this when you don't have like a concrete evidence, but have a strong sense or intuition about something. So it conveys, it is more of like a gut feeling or intuition. To me, it feels like. Again, to me, it feels like. Now, for the first set of phrases, we have it seems to me that, I could be wrong, but, maybe it's just me, but, I tend to think, to me it feels like. Alright, let's immediately hop on its practice drill. Same process, same pattern. Alright, let's start with the first one. It seems to me that this plan is risky. It seems to me that this plan is risky, so it introduces a mild opinion. I could be wrong, but I think he's late. I could be wrong, but I think he's late. It expresses a thought while acknowledging potential error. Maybe it's just me, but I find it confusing. So it is more a personal and possibly subjective feeling. I tend to think we should wait. A habitual way of thinking or inclination. That's what it is expressing. To me, it feels like. to me, it feels like we missed something. So it is expressing an opinion based on feeling or intuition. All right, let's delve a little deeper and have the second set of phrases for softening or hedging opinions. First, we have here, I would say. Again, I would say it is a polite suggestion or a gentle way of offering your opinion without stating it as a definitive fact. I would say. Now, the key here is that the clear pronunciation of W sound. That's the pronunciation tip. I would say. Again, I would say. So, there's also the emphasis, I guess, is on I would say. It is on the word say. So it's a bit more formal than I think, and it often implies a degree of consideration or thoughtfulness. So I would say it's a way of guiding the conversation without being forceful. I would say. Next, we have I guess you could say. I guess you could say it's casual, it's soft opinion that is what is expressing. It often indicates that you're not entirely committed to this view or that it's just one way of looking at things. I guess you could say. You emphasize on the word guess here, I guess you could say, so that it can highlight the uncertainty. So it is basically, I guess you could say it's more of a tentative observation. You leave room for other interpretations or a change in opinion. I guess you could say. Third, I'm not an expert, but. I'm not an expert, but. So this is a very effective way to introduce a modest opinion, especially when you're aware that others might have more knowledge or experience than you in that particular area. Here you emphasize in the word expert, so I'm not an expert, but. So you do that just to show your awareness of your limitations. Now here, when you use this phrase, you use this when you make your subsequent opinion less authoritative and more of a contribution to the discussion. I'm not an expert, but all right. Moving on to perhaps it's just a thought, but perhaps it's just a thought, but. So this phrase, it offers a suggestion or a tentative idea. So it often, invite others to weigh in. Pronunciation wise, we have a softer rhythm. Basically, we do that so that you can reflect the tentative nature of the thought. So soft rhythm can help that. It is a way to introduce an idea without being too assertive and encouraging collaborative thinking. That's what we get if we try to use this phrase. Perhaps it's just a thought, but all right. Finally, we have I kind of think that. Again, I kind of think that. So this introduces an informal opinion and it significantly softens your statement. So pronunciation wise, you link kind of smoothly, like one word, kind of. I kind of think that. I kind of think that. We do that so you make it sound more casual and less definite. For kind of, you can also say kinda. You can also just say kinda. I kinda think that. Instead of kind of, you can say I kinda think that because it's more casual. I kinda think that. So it's a way of sharing what's on your mind without presenting it as a strong conviction. I kinda think that. So for this set, we had I would say, I guess you could say, I'm not an expert, but perhaps it's just a thought, but I kinda think that. And just like the others, let's have our practice drill. Same pattern, same process, starting with I would say that this is a good opportunity. So it offers a polite and somewhat cautious positive opinion. I guess you could say it's complicated. So it expresses a casual and softened opinion about something being complex. I'm not an expert, but I think it's doable. It's more of a modest opinion. You acknowledge that you have a lack of expertise, something like that. Perhaps it's just a thought, but we could try this. It's more of a tentative suggestion. I kind of think that we should stay. So it expresses an informal and somewhat hesitant opinion. I kind of think that. All right. I think that's the last one. Yes. Yeah, that's the last one, everyone. So So far, we for today's discussion, in a summary, we um we had like for this session on expressing opinions clearly, we've explored the four key areas presented in the slide. We state an opinion, we agree with someone, we disagree politely, and we soften or hedge opinions. So, for stating an opinion, we looked at various phrases to introduce your thoughts and beliefs. For stating an opinion, the phrases that we include are I think, I believe, I feel that, in my opinion, from my point of view. If you ask me personally, I think, as far as I'm concerned, the way I see it, and to be honest. Now, when agreeing with someone, we examine different ways to show your alignment, from simple affirmation to indicating a strong understanding. Phrases that we've included in this discussion are I totally agree. That's so true. I agree with you. Absolutely. You're right. I get what you're saying. I couldn't agree more. That's exactly how I feel. That makes sense. I'm with you on that. Next, third area is on disagreeing politely. We focused on phrases that allow you to express a different viewpoint respectfully. So, disagreeing politely. The phrases are I'm not sure I agree. I see your point, but I understand, but that's one way to see it, but I'm afraid I disagree. I don't quite agree with that. I see things a bit differently. That's not how I see it. You might be right, but I respect your opinion, but. So that's disagreeing politely. And lastly, we have softening or hedging opinions. Basically, we discussed phrases that introduce a degree of uncertainty or subjectivity to your statements. Such phrases include it seems to me that I could be wrong that but maybe it's just me, but I tend to think. To me it feels like I would say. I guess you could say I'm not an expert, but perhaps it's just a thought, but I kinda think that. So those are the phrases that we have covered for today's session. That's a lot, but yes, you've cleared it all throughout our discussion. So, those are the things that we will be talking for today, that we already talked for today, and that brings us the conclusion of our session. Now, remember the goal here, again, everyone, is just to communicate your thoughts and appropriately in different. Communicate your thoughts appropriately in different social contexts. So, consistent practice is key. I've already mentioned it a lot of times that consistent practice is always the key to truly mastering these phrases and making them a natural part of your spoken English. So pay attention to the pronunciation tips that I have provided for each phrase in the slides because it will help you a lot. So again, this is all for today. Thank you all for your participation. And yeah, thank you all for your participation. Our next topic will be on pronouncing questions and directions, and that's the last part of our conversational English series. I hope you're ready by then. Have a good night ahead